What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and would you look at this? It's a VanVan. Look what we found. We found a VanVan, and if you remember, a couple of years ago, I was able to review one of these motorcycles, and was very happy, actually, to be able to ride one of these motorcycles because I honestly love the small motorcycles. The VanVan 200 is not a very big motorcycle, technically a 199cc motorcycle that barely has any power whatsoever. That's the charm of it. It's a commuter bike. It's a bike that you can use for just getting around town, going around the city, bombing around, you know, roads that you normally wouldn't dare take other motorcycles on. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. The VanVan is something that is as simple and as elegant as a hammer. It has the big fat tires, as you can see down there. Of course, I'll hop off in a moment and we'll show you the rear tire. It's got the big old fat tires, just like a TW200 from Yamaha. Now, this bike has some very distinct advantages. It's a little bit, well, more narrow, a better seat. I mean, a big, better seat. This thing is huge, and it is fuel injected, something that the TW still is not. It has been made for a long time as a carbureted motorcycle, and that is not a big deal. It just happens to be one of those things that if you're not, you know, willing to sit out there in the cold waiting for it to be on choke and get off choke and warm up and run right and all that stuff, that is exactly what a bike like this is designed for. Transition over to the dirt here, and that's exactly the great thing about the TW and the VanVan 200 is that they're both small, lightweight little machines that actually are capable of going just about anywhere. That's the best part about motorcycles like this, is that you can go off-road, you can go on-road, you can goof around the city, you can goof around the countryside, you can goof around your farm, you can have a good time. You can complain about humans and their nastiness and their trashiness. Mattresses, car parts, everything left around in the trees over here. It's just why people. Disgusting. But these bikes are just simple, honest machines. And that is what makes them so great. Slide a little bit there, not much. All right, already back off the dirt, but we'll just keep on going here. The one thing I liked about the VanVan whenever I rode it the last time, which was actually back in 2019, it was a bike that I loved for how peppy it really is for such a small engine. It actually gets up and goes pretty decently. I think it has a little bit better throttle response than the TW200. I've rode many TW200s actually, and they're great motorcycles. They're just like this one. They're as reliable as a brick going through a window. But this one as well, you know, is just as simple and as honest as a hammer. And it's just a fun overall ride altogether. Now, looking down at our console here, there's barely anything on this thing. This thing literally just has a speedometer, a couple of lights on there for fuel injection and for the bright selection. And then it has your turn signal, the double signaled in one light, neutral, and a low fuel indicator. This does not have a very big gas tank whatsoever, but it does return pretty decent mileage. About 80 is what I have gotten so far. And that's, of course, goofing off in ways that, you know, I don't know if they were intending for it to be goofed off in ways like that, but I was using it for the video that we talked about the U-turn area and the fun and exciting stuff that it brings to most brand new motorcyclists and everything. Now, because of this thing's wide and fat tires, it goes over roads like this perfectly stable. I mean, it is just a fantastic little bike to go skirting around on the dirt roads with. I really think this is hilarious. But not only is it home out here on a dirt road like this or a fire road, that's the great thing about this one. Unlike the Groms, unlike the Z125s, you know, some of those smaller bikes that Honda had come out with and the mini bikes that were coming out, this one is more at home on both. It's still not a big, incredibly heavy machine. It is not a stylish machine by any means. It does have an old school look. Of course, the frame that it is based off on is the RV125 VanVan. So that VanVan would have actually been more in line with the Groms and the Z125s and now the Trail 125s and everything that are coming out. Whereas for the American market, when they were bringing this thing in 2016, they decided that they're going to upgrade the engine. Of course, the 125 did have fuel injection, so they carried over the fuel injection on this one as well. So it made for a little bit easier starting motorcycle during cold conditions and all that, like today. Today's a fairly cold day. But it's simple to hop onto and ride and not worry about anything. Of course, if you guys have messed with the TW200, even though it is carbureted, that bike actually wakes up fairly quickly. But this one, I just like the gearing better for when it comes to on-road purposes. I will admit, though, that the TW feels more like a tractor and has a better gear ratio for the off-road portions than the VanVan here does for its off-road purposes. Now, braking is done by a single disc in the front and a drum in the rear, so very simplistic setup. Nothing major going on. No ABS, no electronic nannies. This is not throttle by wire by any means. This is throttle by a cable for actuating the idler and the throttle. Same with the clutch as well. Definitely a cable operated. Now, I will say that there is advantages to having the VanVan over, say, a Grom or say one of the others. That is a really big thing there. That is not a good idea in Oklahoma, folks. If you guys understand what wind is, I hope they have that thing tied down. Look at all these. That's fun though. Anyway, but back to it. So the one thing that this thing definitely has an advantage over like the Groms and the Z125s, besides the size of the engine, of course this is pre-2021 Grom that is coming soon, but it has a 5-speed transmission. And it is a very nice transmission. It is just a very simple, honest, mechanical linkage. And it doesn't really fuss or anything like that or throw any false neutrals. It clicks in and out of gear perfectly. And it's very easy to find neutral in this particular machine as well. Engine braking on this thing, if you were folks that like to do that, as you can see, because it's so small and it's got so much compression braking, it just pretty much will come to a stop just by compression braking alone. This bike is very flickable as well. It is a bike that actually handles turns and everything that you throw at them beautifully. I know that in Oklahoma we are in an area that we have a sizable amount of straight line roads. The only thing that we really kind of have is the rolling hills that we can go up to. But this isn't that terrible. It really actually, you know, handles these roads just fine, and it doesn't do bad in a straight line, even with a pretty brisk wind. And I know without the trees having their leaves and everything like that, you can't really see the wind, except for maybe a little bit. I know we got plenty of tree damage down here. We had a major ice storm, and it took down tons and tons of limbs this year, and it was a huge mess. And we've had wind and everything like that. But this bike rolls around great in a straight line in these conditions, but it also does well in the turns as well, because that big old fat rear tire really grips in to whatever you're going into, and it just pulls this bike all the way through. Now, when it comes down to how the handlebars and everything sits for the rider triangle, the bars do come up a little bit, but they are actually kind of a little bit low, so I do have to slump forward a little bit from the cockpit to get to the handlebars. Overall, though, it does have a adjustable brake lever. It does not have an adjustable clutch lever, though. And the ergonomics are just, like I said, they're brutally simple. And that's a wonderful thing. As you can see, banging through gears is just buttery and so easy to do. You can see just your engine cutoff switch and start button over here. You have your brights and your turn selector and your horn. A little bitty horn. But it's a little bitty bike. When I rode this thing back a couple years ago, like I said though, I really did fall in love with it, and I had a lot of praise for it. It was capable of reaching highway speeds in an urban style interstate, so it's not really going to be the huge long-range trip bike. It's not anything that spectacular or anything like that, but it can do it. It does hilariously cut your fuel off though if you get a little bit too quick, and it usually does that cut off around 70 miles an hour. So the interstate system here in Oklahoma has speeds ranging from 70 to 75. You could still make the minimum speed. You are still legal for the interstate here in Oklahoma because you are above the 175 mark, or 150 mark, I should say. And that allows you to take this one on the interstate because it can meet the minimum speeds of at least the 40, 50 miles an hour. Something that the Groms and Z125s really can't do. And the TW can do that as well. It can handle this kind of speed. But to me, it's just more uncomfortable. And the suspension is more off-road than it is on-road, where this one is more of an on-road split when it comes down to it. And to be honest, for such a small little fork up front and for such a little bitty tiny shock in the rear, it's just a mono shock, it has really good suspension for on the road. It actually handles bumps and bruises pretty nicely for the road, and like I said, light duty on fire roads or dirt roads. Maybe a little bit of stuff on your property if you got pretty decently flat land and you're not trying to car over rocks or anything crazy. Oh, look at that, the fuel light came on. We're at 91.9 miles. Well, that was incredible. I want to see that again. I hope that comes through the video. That deer was riding a motorcycle. Deer doing wheelie crossing. Woo, better watch out for them. Whoever put that sticker on there, kudos to them. That was hilarious. But anyway, like I said, this thing just handles the bumps and bruises perfectly. I mean, look at that little tiny fork. It's not a very big thing at all. Of course, it's spoked wheels. It's mid-mount. Like I said, the rider triangle, I need to get back to it. I need to circle back here. When it comes down to it, I am slumped over a little bit. I am 6 foot tall. My inseam is 32 inches. And my arms are kind of short, so I'm kind of a little bit oddly proportioned. I will admit that because, you know, why not? My feet are size 14, so I actually have enough room to be on the pegs down here and move around and get the shifting and everything done, despite the narrowness of this motorcycle and despite how short everything is to going places there. As you can see, pretty decent room there. So that's the good news, is that if you're a bigger person like I am, I also weigh around 209 to 210 pounds, this bike will handle you just fine. And it can even go up this hill and not lose speed, which is something that doesn't happen very often for bikes of this caliber. But it does happen here because this bike is fantastic. Now, I have been riding this bike around at night as well, and the little bitty headlight up front is actually fantastic for night riding. It is one of the best old school halogen style lights I have ever seen mounted to a motorcycle. You click that thing to main beam and it illuminates everything in front of you. Because you're not going that fast at all, it is at least a 12-second light, probably even more than that if you got a nice straightaway, and you can see very, very visibly side to side and forward, and you can also see with the regular beam really well as well. So it does very good for the lighting at night. And also when it comes to visibility off the mirrors and everything, it is fantastic. You'll notice they're just the little old round standard mirrors, and they are good because they are toward the end of the handlebar and you can see clearly out of them. You can adjust, of course, them to your flavor. All right, let's go ahead and let's do a little bit of a walk around here. I'll pull into this parking lot right here, and we'll talk about this real fast when it comes down to what this bike looks like. All right, everybody, so the moment you've been waiting for, the VanVan in all of its glory, the wonderfully huge, thick, padded, tucked and rolled seat that this thing has. It's just absolutely ridiculously big, but it makes it special. This bike, like I said, it is sad to see this bike go, because it really was something special. It really brought something to the table that the TW didn't bring, and some of the other mini bikes and stuff in its class. It just, I thought it spiced it up a little bit, just because it looked so retro-y cool, yet kind of funky at the same time. 30.3 inches on that particular seat. The gas tank is around 1.7 gallons, so it's not very big at all. As you can see, it is a nice steel gas tank though. So like I said, more of that on-road portion, as you can see by the front tire, even though it's a nice beefy thing. You can see it's that more road bias tire, unlike the TW, which has a little bit more going on. Of course, you can see that you can still sling the mud and go have some fun with it. You can see some mud and stuff on it. I didn't clean it. I went ahead and had some play with it and just goofed off. And it can crawl around off-road. That's the greatest part about it. You can even see it does have the raised up exhaust on it as well. And that way it gives you, that ability to go off-road and not burn anything. Of course, I like how this one does have its little charger right there. You can see that big old fat rear wheel, and you see the little bitty drum brake it's got back there. Nothing really big on this bike at all. Does have passenger provision. Rode it with a passenger, had my wife on the back. I don't recommend it. Not going to be the fastest thing. It still actually gets up to about 50-55 miles an hour without an issue with a passenger on board. See a little mud guard over there. And that's blocking that little bitty mono shock right there, as you can see. Preload adjustable only on the back. Front forks, as you can see, are not adjustable whatsoever. Just a simple machine, as simple as a hammer. And of course, the oil cooler hanging off the side there is kind of funny to me. I like that. And I like the little toolkit on the back of this thing. It's got that big old light on the back there, but it does have that little toolkit, and it's pretty cool. Maintenance is simple on it. Simple to adjust the chain. It's simple to do anything on this motorcycle. It literally is just, like I said, it's as brutally honest and as simple as a hammer. And you can't ask for very much more out of a motorcycle. It is one of the best little commuter bikes that you can ever find. And I mean, does it compare to the TW when it comes to off-road? Does it compare to the Groms and stuff like that are smaller? In a sense, yeah, it's kind of in between the both of them to me. It's very great for a road bias motorcycle with some off-road prowess. If you're willing to take it on a little bit more gnarly trails, you might want to update the tire a little bit and maybe put some protection on that lower casing and stuff like that, since it's just hanging out the bottom there. But it will do it. I mean, it is geared low enough to crawl up those hills. Like if you see that hill to that fence, if that fence wasn't there, I'd be glad to take this thing straight up that, and it'd go right up without an issue. It'll just crawl over everything. The gearing's really good on it. Just like I said, not quite as low as the TW at all. But it's just so much cooler. I just love the way it looks. I love the way it rides. I've ridden many of TWs. I know they can outturn this thing. I know they can, in the short maneuvers and everything, and off-road maneuvers, you got better radius on your turn, more degrees than you do on this bike. But there's just something about the kitschy coolness of this old VanVan here that it's sad that Suzuki decided to take it and the TU 250 as well from us. It's a very sad day that we don't have this motorcycle anymore in the United States. And it really was a cool bike. And to be honest, they, seemingly sold out pretty decently whenever you could see them. I mean, it's all set up for commuting. It has a helmet holder. It's just small and lightweight and can go everywhere. It can crawl up on curbs. You can hop a curb on it. It won't hurt it. It's just sad that we lose this machine. And I'm very glad that we actually found it and brought it into our garage as one of our own. It really was a fun find. It was a used machine. It only had 190 something miles on it when it was returned. It just stayed in a barn for about a year and wasn't really well loved. And now it found a home with us, and only about a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago at the most, and we've put a couple of 100 miles on it, as you'll see. Little over a couple of 100 miles on it, and it's just as fun as the first test drive, and it really is. It's just comfortable. It's just a fun little commuter. It's great to live out where I do in the county, and even go into Oklahoma City with it and goof around at the stores and everything in Oklahoma City. Just throw a backpack on and take this, because you can just get around everywhere. You can fling it up on the curb and park next to the store and pop off that curb and just keep on going and not even block anybody in the parking lot or anything like that. And that's just a great time to have. It's just great to bomb around town with it and goof off with it like that. It's just such an honest, simple, wonderful machine that was highly underrated and didn't really get enough press or look at. I know they did some hilarious things. There was I don't know if it was motorcycle.com or if it was Cycle World, whichever one, decided to put this against a multistrada. But I have to agree that it is a burro. It definitely is a little bit of a pack mule or donkey or whatever you want to say, because it is just a great companion to crawl up the hills with and go goofing off-road and doing the fire roads. And it's so honest and simple. If you were to drop it or anything like that, it is very easy to repair. The rest of this bike has been around for 40 years, so parts are going to be just about everywhere. The only thing that would be a problem would be the engine here in the U.S., because it's kind of its own thing. It's not really a redress of the DR200 engine, nor is it really a redress of the Bergman 200 engine. It's kind of its own little deal. Just kind of out there in its own little land there. But it is just too fantastic to not ride it. As you can see, just wait for that to go off. Pop that bad boy on. Doesn't make barely a noise at all. A silent and wonderful companion this little motorcycle is. And to be honest, if you can find one and you really are just looking for a commuter bike and you don't need interstates, or you live on back roads, or you have some property or something to play around with, yes, the Yamaha has been around forever in the same way. Yes, that's tempting, because there's parts beyond parts beyond parts, because hundreds of thousands of those things are on the road to this day. They're just as reliable, but they just aren't as cool and as unique as the little VanVan 200. I hope you enjoyed this discussion review of the VanVan 200. And if you have any questions about it, please let us know in the comments below, and we'll get back with you. I'll put detailed specifications that go through everything about this motorcycle in the description of the video. What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and if you like what you see, please like, share, subscribe, and punch that bell below. And that way you can get all the notifications of all the new videos about what we're doing, and even some chats and other things that we may post about. Also, if you want to know what gear we are wearing, this is the AGV Sport Flex Textile Jacket and the AGV Sport Super Alloy Jeans. AGV Sport is a proud sponsor of Rabid Hedgehog, and I really, really love their gear and have continued to buy even more, because why not? It is great. It is made by riders. It's for riders since 1985. And once again, I want to thank Law Tigers of Oklahoma as well for helping us with this channel and giving us sponsorship and helping us keep going for you guys. So at any rate, keep that shiny side up, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next ride.